Hi, my name is Jesse Lynn.
And I'm Angela Lynn. Welcome back to another episode of But Where Are You Really From? Today we are talking about healthcare again in a mini. We have previously talked about healthcare from the context of, I think we analyzed like the Taiwanese healthcare system, just
Yes.
to bitch a little bit about the brokenness of the US healthcare system. We're bringing back this topic because it is top of mind from a recent experience that I had in Korea. And I made a TikTok about that kind of unexpectedly blew up. So I went to the dentist when I was in Seoul because, okay, very embarrassing, but I thought I chipped a tooth. And what really, well, okay, so I thought I chipped a tooth. Let's stop it there. So then I was like, I gotta go to the dentist. So I found one and then I showed up and TLDR, I didn't chip a tooth. It was plaque, which is a
Ah,
disgust. Or like tartar or whatever. I forget which one. I think it's tartar is the kind of like solidified version. Anyways, but he was like, yeah, you need like a deep clean to get rid of all this shit. And obviously I didn't have Korean insurance. So I made a TikTok about my experience doing that and how kind of like crazy it was too, from the differences of the actual like dentist visit experience and also the price tag difference. So I think that video has like 120,000 views on it or something, and it was because most of the comments are people being like, what? Let me like fly the fuck over to Korea ASAP to have cheap, affordable dental
I mean,
care.
there's a reason our parents delay all of their healthcare shit until they're back in Taiwan as well.
It's true. It's true. So, yeah. So, inspired by people's surprisingly very interested reaction to my rando Korean dentist story, we are bringing back the topic of healthcare for a mini for y'all. So, I think the first thing we're going to talk about is cost difference.
Money.
Yeah, and so I can't really speak to like non-dental because the only thing I did was the dentist
Sure.
experience when I was in Korea. But I will say I think the kind of fundamental difference is that in the US at least, doctors and dentists can set their own prices. And because of insurance largely being run by private companies, they're just constantly trying to like milk as much money as they can out of the insurance providers. So then they make up like crazy prices for stuff to try to haggle it to a point where it's like a pretty high price that they get, right? So I tried to look up like how much how much would a dental like the dental procedures that I got cost without insurance in the US? And the funny slash sad thing is that the range is so wide. Like you cannot find a singular source to say like it would definitively cost this much because doctors and such can just set whatever they want. And I think dentists notoriously are like one of the worst offenders for pricing pretty high to try to milk the insurance
Sorry,
companies.
dentist friends.
Yeah, sorry. Anyways, so what I did at the dentist was I got a deep clean, which includes scaling, which I had never heard that term, but basically it's when they use those like metal tools to like scrape away the built up tartar and stuff, including like in your
Yeah.
gums, yeah, which is like not goes beyond your kind of like basic
Isn't
cleaning.
that really painful?
It is painful, yes. Yeah. So I had to practice my meditation during it. Anyways, so I did that. And then I did an x ray because, okay, so just to like give myself a little leniency on all y'all judging me with all the like plaque I had built up, I had a fucking dentist appointment scheduled for like March 2020 or whatever, like right before the pandemic shutdown happened. And then that happened and I was like, I'm not going into a like office where I have to have my mouth open and like the person could be spitting into my mouth. No way, right? So I pushed it off and then eventually I didn't have a corporate job anymore, so I didn't have insurance, and I was like, I'm not going to. So like that's how it all happened and spiraled. Was like after everything said and done, it had been like over 2 years since I had cleaned my teeth professionally. So, anyways, so then the dentist I saw in Korea was like, beyond the cleaning, We should also do an x-ray to make sure that you don't have cavities because it's been a while since you've been to a dentist. Who knows? So I was like, okay. But like he and his assistants were all like very concerned for me because I didn't have insurance. They're like, are you sure you want to do these? Because like you don't have insurance. It's going to be pretty expensive. And I was like, how much is it going to be? And so, okay, my cleaning plus the x-ray was 137,000 won. And because the dollar was really strong and still is really strong against the won currently, it was like $106 at the time that I did it for both things. So I was like, lols, I was like laughing. I'm like, I'm chill, y'all. Like, I'm good. Let's just roll with it. So those two things I looked up. And in the US, it's such a huge range. So a basic cleaning, which is not what I did, I did deep cleaning. A basic cleaning could be anywhere from like $75 to $200 alone. And then the scaling, I cannot find a single source. It was like, it could be as cheap as $100 up to like $900 or some shit. It was just like astronomical what people can charge and the difference. And then the x-ray, another reason I said it was kind of like a crazy experience is that I had never been to a dentist where they had the like panoramic x-ray machines. Like I've been to several dentists in the US because I moved so many times and I always lived in big cities, but I always had the kind of x-rays where they like stick a thing in your mouth and you bite down and then they move it to a different spot in your mouth, you bite down, and it takes like 15-20 minutes to like do your whole mouth. This one, they were like, okay, step into the machine, bite down, and then just close your eyes. And after like 60 seconds, it did the entire mouth from like the one bite. So that's the panoramic x-ray. So I was like, this is crazy, because it sounded like I was in like a spaceship. It was just like meow, meow, meow. And then like 60 seconds later it was like, here's your whole mouth. That kind of x-ray is like extra expensive in the US because it's like better technology, right? So like again, the range is huge. It could be like $75 upwards of like multiple hundreds of dollars without insurance, right? So I think I got a pretty banging deal without insurance, and I'm sure with insurance it would have been free for Koreans. And to be fair, would have been free probably in the US if I had insurance, but I didn't. And also thinking about the dental costs that I was paying into even my like employer plan, even if cleanings and x-rays are free, I was still paying, I think I was paying like $20 a month, like $10 a paycheck or something. So 20 times 12 months is $120. So in a year, I still paid more than like my one out-of-pocket time in Korea uninsured.
Yep. I mean, it's crazy how different the cost is, and even like kind of what you mentioned between providers. I've definitely had that experience where they can't even tell you how much things cost. I would go to a place and I'd be like, oh, they want to do a filling. I'm like, how much did that cost? They're like, we can't tell you. We had to ask insurance first. I'm like, okay, ask the insurance now. And they're like, no, like they might not give us the right cost. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's so convoluted because it's all about trying to milk as much money as possible from each party.
What I have noticed here, though, is that there are all these kind of like boutique medical things popping up. So it's like stuff that is not insurance. It's kind of like if you live in California and you know what Kaiser Permanente is. Kaiser Permanente is like this one-stop shop for all your medical stuff. So like your primary care, your specialty, whatever, it's all within this like network, but you cannot go outside of that network to seek any care. And what I've noticed recently is there are a lot of these like small boutique ones that don't have the same scale as Kaiser, but it's like cute little boutique place. It's like nicely designed. People are dressed very well. Like the experience is quite different. So what was that like going to the dentist there? Was it like also gut-wrenching horror and overhead lighting, or like a little bit nicer?
Well, it's kind of weird. So the guy I chose is actually kind of like funky.
Funky?
Yeah, his name was Dr. Dracula, and he was like a comic book artist slash dentist. So his office was actually kind of fun because he's an artist. So he had like murals that he drew himself, and he had like an arcade machine and like random figurines and shit everywhere. And he had like dreads. It was the weirdest thing. Anyways, he was cool. Office was cool. The experience of like actually being there, I would say it's still pretty stale, like the actual, you know, the place that you were sitting. But the main difference for me was that in Asia, or at least Korea, when they did all the shit for me, they covered my face with this like sheet that only had an opening for my mouth. So I couldn't see what was happening. And at first I thought it was really weird, but actually I liked it better than in the US where you see everything that's happening, because it gives me anxiety to stare at the like sharp things that they're putting in my mouth, versus here is like you can't see anything, so just like close your eyes until it's over. Because you asked if it was painful. I actually think it was like slightly less painful than in the US, because without you adding the like mental
The
pain that you're
anticipation
giving
of
yourself.
it.
Yeah. I was just like, I don't know what's happening, whatever. Just like tell me when it's over. So that was a big difference. It was so quick. And also he gave me like tips for actually taking care of my teeth better, because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of dentists don't actually tell you anything that you could be doing better. They're just like, you know you should be flossing, or like, you know, blah blah blah, but they don't tell you how. And he gave me like a specific technique for brushing my teeth to make sure that I was getting my gums and the pockets in between, so that I can prevent tartar and stuff from building up in the future.
I think actually you just mentioned a key difference. So he's the dentist.
He is the dentist.
Okay, I want to
yes.
say about 95% of the time when I get a dental cleaning, the dentist is not doing it. The dental
Okay,
hygienist
sorry.
is doing it.
He didn't do it.
Oh,
No,
okay.
he didn't do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
He just came by to like talk to me.
Okay.
But you know what? It is kind of weird because I can't tell who's the dentist half the time when I go to somewhere in the US, because I didn't have a primary dentist necessarily or healthcare provider in anything. So it was changing all the time, and I couldn't really tell who was like a dentist and who wasn't a dentist. He acted more like a doctor would, in terms of like, you know how when you go to like a physician, it's usually like you get the nurse in the beginning who like helps you do all the administrative stuff, and then the doctor comes in for like all of 5 minutes to like tell you what the vitals mean and whatnot. It was more like that with him. So he came by to be like, to do the assessment of like, hey, what's going on with you? Like, let's talk about what you might need. And then a different technician came in to like do the actual cleaning. And then she did the x-ray for me. But then afterwards, he made me go into his office to talk about the x-ray results. So it was more like a physician consultation type thing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's generally been my experience, but I keep going to the same dental practice, and it's usually like the hygienist does all of the work up front, and then the dentist comes to like inspect it. They check if they like cleaned your teeth well, and they give you kind of like notes on like what they're seeing.
So shout out to technicians. Y'all are doing actually
The
all
actual
the work.
the actual work, yeah.
And then the last thing we want to talk about was kind of just the difference in like the insurance incentives or punishment. And like, look, we don't live in Korea, we don't live in Taiwan, we don't actually know how like those are run, but as far as we understand it, the main difference is that a lot of these other countries provide insurance by default to citizens. It's kind of like required that everyone is covered by insurance, and it's provided by the government in some way. It doesn't mean it's free, but everyone essentially has insurance. Versus in the US, because everything's like privately owned, all these insurance companies, it's not required necessarily for you to have insurance, but you are punished if you don't have insurance. So it's not an incentive, it's a punishment. It's obviously relevant for me now because I no longer work for corporate America, so I don't have a daddy Warbucks company paying for my insurance plan anymore. So I'm currently uninsured, so it's like top of mind for me. It used to be that the federal government charged you at tax time for not being insured. That's why we've always had to like show those tax forms that show that we've been covered for X number of months. As of, I think, 2019 or 2020, I don't remember, kind of recently, the federal government at least got rid of the penalty for not being insured. But lucky us, the states do their own shit, and not every state has gotten rid of it. So for example, California is still on your ass if you're uninsured. So you are going to be penalized at tax season if you are uninsured, which I just think is like a really backwards way of approaching healthcare. It's like, oh, you can't afford this expensive healthcare? Well, sucks for you. I'm going to milk more money out of you for not being insured. And if you get in trouble, if you actually have a health scare and you're uninsured, you'll be, punished with even more money because it costs way more than if you were insured.
Yeah. I guess there's not really a good model. Well, I mean, like, our model is never going to work because it's trying to, like, fill in the blanks where there are no blanks to fill, really. You're trying to, like, improve a system that's, like, rotten. It has to be, like, redone. I remember seeing, like, not in Korea, but I think in Japan, all of the doctors have, like, this giant book of procedures. And it's like, this is the max you can charge for this kind of procedure. And so there's a cap on what they can bill all of the patients. And I just think that provides like some more stability in terms of like, you can go to the doctor and it will not cost more than like a certain amount.
Maybe this is something that is quite different in the US versus in Asia or Korea, at least, because I was there. The dentist that I went to, his website straight up printed the cost for every procedure. So you knew up front how much it would cost.
Oh, cool.
They're not trying to swindle
Yeah.
you because they're not going to make up a new price. Moving into our close, since this is a mini, we want to hear from y'all. So, what is a healthcare experience that really surprised or shocked you? Whether that be a US one where you got completely ripped off, or if you were out of country and had a pleasant one, or a horror story one, who knows? Let us know anything that stands out to you on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, wherever you're watching this, in the comments. We want to hear from you. What is a crazy experience that you had?
And don't forget to get your teeth cleaned if you can.
Yes, and for anyone who cares, I finally flossed now. I don't want to deal with that experience again.
Oh, God.
Well, and come back next week because we'll have another fresh episode for you then. And until then, 再见, bitches.